Lani, thank you very much indeed for your time. Day one, we're dealing with what? Over 700,000 special votes registered, approved over the next 2 days. Let's talk about day one. How did it go?
We are quite satisfied as a commission that the day went smoothly. Of course, we had expected some minor difficulties here and there, but compared to the magnitude of the project, we don't think that those minor problems have affected in any significant way.
What sort of challenges are we talking about?
Well, as you know, that since we started with the registration, the weekend, we've always had difficulties in Vuani. And when we realized that there are few people who have registered for special votes, we decided that instead of actually dealing with that situation today, that we postpone it for tomorrow so that there is seamless transition from special vote into the actual election day on the 3rd of August. So
there's about, what, 30 people there?
Yeah, just around 32.
Yeah, and that should be wrapped up, what, in 2 hours or so?
We can do that even in an hour.
Yeah, okay. In terms of, I understand that there were 3 separate accidents involving IEC officials. Any update with regards to the conditions of the occupants?
There were 3 individuals who got involved in an accident, and one of them is in hospital, and then 2 others, we are told, are back at work at their stations. And we hope that we are not going to be experiencing this kind of difficulties again going into the 3rd of August.
Yeah. In terms of the ballot papers, everything was distributed on time? As
far as we are aware, all our voting materials, including the ballot papers, have now reached our stations. And our officials will be dealing with those when the stations open on the 3rd.
What about protest action in terms of, I understand there were a few sporadic protests around the country. Give us some insight on that.
Well, quite a number of people who are aggrieved by some of the decisions, either of local government or provincial government. They normally use the electoral process as a platform to voice out their grievances. And these elections have not been different from any that we have had before. So we expect quite a number of areas for people to show their dissatisfaction through these protest actions. They believe that the electoral process provides them with a platform to raise those kind of issues that they want to raise.
I'm sure security is not going to be compromised, isn't it, even on special voting days?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been working very closely, obviously, with the communities, and our first prize is always a negotiated settlement between ourselves and the respective communities. But in a situation where we are unable to find a solution in those kind of conversations, then we expect law enforcement agencies to make sure that we are able to operate smoothly without our operations being interrupted.
Let's just talk about some of the complaints that are coming through. I understand there was about, 28 complaints, of 20 of which was sorted out, isn't it? What sort of complaints are you getting?
Well, the majority of complaints that we are receiving are basically in relation to the violation of the Code of Conduct. As you may be aware that there is one successful prosecution that has already happened in Tshwane. And we have referred today 2 more cases to the Electoral Court. And I'm sure that going into the elections, we will receive even more because these elections, compared to many other elections, it's a highly emotive election.
In terms of the rules of the elections, when do parties have until to object?
They've got until the 2nd midnight to campaign.
To campaign and to object in terms of lodging any objections?
Objections, it depends what kind of objections we are dealing with. There are almost 4 categories of objections that we're talking about here. The first objection would be objections that are happening at the voting station to the presiding officer. This is what we refer to as Section 51 objections. So during voting, if a person is dissatisfied about the process, they can lodge an objection with the presiding officer. After that, we've got what we call Section 59 objections. Section 59 objections are essentially objections during the verification process. In other words, during the process when now the materials are being handed over by the presiding officer to the counting officer. Everything has got to be reconciled. Everything has got to reconcile. If they don't reconcile, then any person can actually lodge an objection in terms of Section 59.
Yeah.
Apart from that, you've got Section 62 objections, which is during the sorting of the ballot papers. So again, any person or political party or party agent during that particular process can raise an objection in terms of Section 62 of the Municipal Electoral Act.
Yeah.
But the most important, not that all these other objections are not important, they are still important, but the most critical becomes what we call Section 65 objections. Now, Section 65 objections are objections that are material to the outcome of the election results. These cannot be dealt with at the voting station. They are referred to the commission, and it is ourselves as commissioners who will then look at those. We have already set up an infrastructure. We deal with it. Now, in terms of the legislation, we cannot announce the results of the election until such time that we've actually gone through all those objections.
Yeah.
And we'll deal with those objections, and after we've dealt with them, it is then that we can announce the results of the election.
These 2 days of special voting, I guess it's great for the IEC to test out its systems, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we use special voting largely as a dry run. Of course, I mean, the first priority is to make sure that you provide platform to those people who have applied. We take them seriously. We've got to make sure that they are able to exercise their right to vote as per the legislation.
Yeah.
But from our side, we also use this to just check if we've got any difficulties, any challenges in terms of our processes. And we're happy that the special votes actually happen before the actual day of the elections.
So tomorrow, 8 to 5, you're confident you can wrap up the special voting?
Yep. Tomorrow, it's again back to the basics. We're going to open our stations from 8 to 5. And then once we are dealt with all those issues, all the applications, we'll be ready now for the 3rd.
Yeah.
And our officials, all of them, will be at their stations. They understand the importance of these elections. They know that they've got to run these elections with professionalism and integrity to make sure that we don't find things that are inconsistent with our own values as an organization.
There's about, 177,000 newly recruited IEC officials, isn't it, for these elections?
We're going to have about 218,000 electoral staff for about 22,612 voting stations.
Yeah. Terry Selane is the Vice Chairperson of the IEC, taking us through special days, special voting days. Today was the first one. Tomorrow we're wrapping it up between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Let's take a bit of a break. We'll be back.